Hey everyone, welcome to Breakthrough Conversations. My name is Danielle Perry and I'm the host. You should know by now, I'm excited that you're tuned in today for this episode. And if this is your first time, this is a Christian podcast which features people of all ages, and they share a bit of their story about how God has helped them to overcome a difficult challenge, situation, or season in their lives, or maybe they're on their way to overcoming with God's help. And they do share authentically. Well, if you're back, then you know that this is part 2 of episode 41 featuring Mr. Glen Wiggins. And the title of this episode is Being a Husband and Dad Caring for My Mom with Alzheimer's. Y'all, if you missed part 1, please go and check it out. But here it is, part 2. Enjoy and be blessed. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, was there ever a point where she didn't remember who you or your family were?
There were times, yeah. So about a year after her going to adult daycare, pretty much what it was. So she was in adult daycare. We were having a nurse in the evenings. I mean, there were definitely times, but I just want to point, about a year after that, we realized that caring for her in the house was more than we could handle. And we knew the time would come. So I can't remember. It was like one of those eye-opening moments when I was like, okay, this can't wait anymore. And so I literally, from work, I found the closest place near where I worked. Because I knew that once I felt like she remembered me less once we moved her into assisted living. And she would sometimes call me her brother's name. I think all my brothers experienced that we would all be Bruce, you know, which was cool because that's close enough. You know, you're close. But at that point, so I originally found a place close to work because I knew my commitment.
Yeah.
It was not close to the family. It was in Arlington. I worked in Arlington.
Okay.
But I knew I could visit multiple times during a week. And I didn't want to not be able to do that. If we put her closer to home or maybe we were looking at a place in Greenbelt, I was like, I can't. I wanted to be able to drop in and say, okay, that doesn't look right. You know, things like that. And I didn't want to be predictable when I came in. So I could, you know, I asked them, I said, when can I come visit? They said, whenever you want. So if I went into work, if I wanted to show up at 6 a.m., I would. I would often walk there and visit at lunchtime, but sometimes I go after work.
Yeah.
But then on the weekends, and it was hard to get there on the weekends because you got the kids who have activities. So I was like, I want her close to work where I can see her frequently.
Yeah.
And that, again, that's when I started. I think I might have been, at least from my point of view, the last one in the house that she stopped remembering who exactly I was. She knew I was family, but she didn't know I was Glenn necessarily. So,
now, were you kind of expecting it to kind of maybe get to that point, or was that still, well, when it happened, you know, still kind of a shock to you?
I don't think. I think. Because of all the research I'd done, I'm not saying I did a tremendous amount, but even talking to the doctors and just learning about the stages, I kind of knew what to expect, just not when to expect it. And again, you go for so long a certain way, and then there's this little twist. Oh, now there's this, you know. So we had that moment. And we moved her to assisted living, and you know, it went okay. But and we tried to find a place that wasn't too anesthetic. You know, it kind of felt homey, but you know, I don't think anyone feels like I don't know. I just felt like, you know, the care. It's probably very great, But, I was just very critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So As her son, right?
Why is this?
Yeah.
I mean, and there were little things like Mom, when she first moved into assisted living, one thing, it was a flat floor. There were no steps. And then, all of a sudden I go back, she's in a wheelchair. I'm like, why is she in a wheelchair? Well, she's not really moving around as much as we need her to. And I know healthcare is a challenge, but I felt like that's just lazy. No, that's what I was thinking. I was like, she's been here for 6 weeks, and now she's in a wheelchair.
Right.
But I also knew that at that her medication was strong, and when she was going to the day program, we had to get, I forget what something to kind of suppress her emotions, because she would be a handful. And that just sounds so weird saying about my mom. My mom's a handful. But, I knew because she was a handful at home. But, toward the time, when we knew we had to move her. But sometime that medicine would be so, she didn't want to move. So that's why they, even, again, at the day program, they would move her around in a chair sometime. And she, her vision was not great. But she knew how to maneuver stairs when she lived at home. But immediately, it's like that, getting her out of the building and having to maneuver stairs was like incredibly hard. And I was like, I wanted to blame them for it, but it wasn't. It was just a progression and the circumstances that surround the medical, her Alzheimer's. So, yeah.
How long did she stay in that facility until her passing?
So, she stayed in that facility. There were some, we moved her for pretty much financial reasons. The costs were going up and tremendously, and there was no cap. So that's another story. But we experienced that while we were there. It's like this particular facility, as the need increased, the cost increased. So we were taking her to a facility where the cost was higher, but they said it won't change. I mean, it'll change annually, but they can't come to me one day and say, your mom's not chewing her food, so we have to sit with her and help her eat. Oh, that's another $500 a month.
Right,
they weren't going to do anything like that. So I needed that, to handle, the funding and the her salary and insurance. It was like taking all of it, and I was like, I can't take any more changes like this. So we moved her. We moved her February of 2020.
Okay.
And you know what happened in March.
Yep.
So, in March 2020, they closed their doors to all visitors.
Oh, wow.
Which was...
Wow.
Yeah. I literally couldn't see my mom for the last 10 months of her life.
Oh, wow.
They did video calls eventually, but yeah. I mean, I could talk to you on a video call and we could be fine.
Right.
But mom is just looking at a screen and she's like, the nurse has to tell her everything, and she's like, it's me, mom. Yeah. She's kind of doing like I said, when she would talk to people, she was kind of doing that. She didn't really, I don't think she knew who I was at all, especially on a flat screen. There was a break in July on the summer.
Okay.
Where the COVID was at a point where they could let us in. But literally we had to meet her outside, and we had to sit across the table, and we couldn't touch her.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this?
Wow.
I went,
Yeah.
and you had to make an appointment, and it was 20 minutes, and you can get on out of here, right?
Wow.
So, and I would talk to the staff and everything, but it's like, I can't see my mama. And then there was another break, I think, because they closed it again, and then there was another break. And somehow, I think my brother was trying to visit at the same time, and his name is Gary. And I think they got us. And so I was like, where's my appointment? And they're like, huh? Didn't you come? I was like, no, that wasn't me.
Yeah, that wasn't me. Yeah.
And then they closed it down again. So I missed that whole opportunity.
Wow.
They said she had COVID in the summer, like in, I don't know, maybe August. I was like, okay, this was hard. And it's like, but she's showing no symptoms. I said, oh, okay. So she made it through what they said was COVID. They called again in December, maybe November. And they said, we think your mom has COVID again.
Okay.
I was like, this facility was doing well. I mean, it wasn't like you heard half the, it wasn't anything like that.
Okay.
And they were just coming up to the first,
vaccine?
Vaccine. Thank you. They were coming up to the first vaccine. I was nervous about the vaccine at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want her to be a guinea pig. But then the numbers were going up. I was like, yeah, please get her. Get her whenever you can, especially after the 2 incidences. But I also was thinking, oh, well, she's had it twice. Can she get it again? But actually, the second time, I'm sorry, they said it was a false positive. So here we come. Christmas is coming. And we have a video teleconference scheduled for Christmas Eve. And I still to this day don't know what happened. I called, we made arrangements, I waited for the call, I tried to reach out. So it might have been, was it Christmas? Christmas Day was on a Friday. Yeah. Christmas very special. We wanted to do whatever we could. So it didn't happen. So I called Saturday. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, Mr. Wiggins. She was just sleeping, and we didn't want to wake her. We couldn't really wake her. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, okay, so can we do it the 26th? I think it was the next day. And same thing happened, and so I was frustrated, but I was like, it was Christmas for the family, so I was like, okay, let me just be in the moment, and thinking Mom's gonna be there. They called me on Sunday, and they said, we're taking your mom to the hospital and wanted to let you know. I was like, why are you taking her to the hospital? She's having trouble breathing. I said, what do you mean she's having trouble breathing? I actually thought they were calling for the video conference. I was like, oh, you finally called for it. They're like, no, Mr. Wiggins, we got to take her to the hospital. I said, okay, what hospital are you taking her to? Blah, 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 blah. Is it COVID? Oh, well, we really don't know, sir, but we got to get her to the hospital. Yeah, I was like, okay. Yeah, so I didn't. The hospital that they would normally take her to, it was full, and the hospital situation was you can't go there either.
Yeah,
so
hospitals were full, like you said.
Right, and they weren't letting anybody in. So they took her to the hospital, and immediately, they were like, yeah, we believe it's COVID, but we haven't run the test yet, so we'll let you know. That was the weekend of Christmas. So we didn't, I called my brothers, let them know what was going on. But, that was pretty much it, though. That was the last, that was it, and she was gone by January. In fact, it was January 5th, the day before the insurrection. So, but we had to make a decision because Mom had always said she didn't want to be living on machines. So we knew that collectively, but we also, with my brothers, had to collectively come to the decision because she was just literally on a ventilator. For her birthday was January 2nd. The hospital, the immediate family, my brothers and all of the grandchildren were invited to join her, through a video call, which we did, but she really wasn't, she was just there. And then, so we decided to, take her off the system. Because basically what the doctor said was she was having kidney failure and she would probably need dialysis. And, and maybe they were painting a gloomy picture, to make us, to push us in a direction, which I don't even know what to make of that, but it bothered me, but I was still like, I feel like y'all know what y'all want us to do, but we got to figure out what we want to do. But right. I knew she didn't want to live that way, and I knew that, she had been living a way that, people ask me about the mourning period afterwards, or the healing, or whatever took place after that. And I feel like this, all this happening in the world and happening to my mom, it was a way to kind of take me through the mourning process before she passed. Because like I said, there were incidences that happened that were like eye-opening, and we're like, this is not Mom, this is somebody else. It was like I felt like I was losing her little by little throughout this 6 years. And there was a sense of relief and joy, actually, that I felt like Mom was herself again when she passed. So I just remember the morning I woke up after finding out about my mom's passing. I kept seeing this particular picture of her that has been around forever. I didn't know when she took the picture. I knew she was young. I knew it was before I was born. But I called my aunt, and I was talking to her about the picture, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Pat took that one," because my aunt was the youngest and my mom was the second oldest, and she's like, "Yeah, Pat took that when she was 19, and she just got out of high school." I was like, "Really?" But it's like she had been restored, and I don't know why that picture. I don't know. I mean, it was a formal picture, so I don't feel like I did a lot of mourning after she passed. And I talked about it with folks, and it was just like, that was almost the end of my morning.
I can understand that, because like you said, those 6 years or however long, she had been ill, and then as it progressed and she got worse, and you were saying, this isn't really my mom, and it was like a lot of what you had to deal with emotionally, you dealt with through that period, right? And that's what kind of probably took a toll on you at that point in that season, right?
Yeah.
And then when she passed, knowing that she was a believer, knowing that, she surrendered her life to Christ, you knew that she was in a better place, and it was like you were able to
release, breathe, not have to worry about her status from day to day, because I know she's okay. Yeah. So,
wow. So what can you say you and maybe Allison and even your children have learned just from having experienced that?
It's a good question. I mean, you never know what life's going to bring you. But my faith in God, our faith in God, He's going to get you through it. And so, I mean, it's pretty much that simple,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
We've been not fortunate, but we've been able to share our stories with other folks who are
Mm-hmm.
going through the same thing at
Okay.
different stages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's different for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and you never know how. I mean, specifically the Alzheimer's, it could happen a lot differently and a lot quicker. So we were blessed to have her as long as we did.
Yeah.
There's a friend of hers. She went to Edgewood too. She would
Mm-hmm.
call
Mm-hmm.
all the time
Mm-hmm.
and check on mom,
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Moody.
Okay.
Literally, the month that mom died,
Mm-hmm.
she has Alzheimer's now, but it progressed like immediately. We had mom at stage 1, 2, 3,
Right.
and 4,
Right.
but her conditions, I think I'm not, I can't be sure if I'm remembering the story correctly, but again, she would call and talk to mom.
Yeah.
She would call and talk to me just to see if I was doing okay. So I definitely love and appreciate her for that. But just to find out that immediately after she, helped me get through it,
Yeah.
she was in that same condition,
Wow.
and there was it wasn't really gradual. She went for a walk. She came back, and they knew something was wrong. Something along those lines. It was like that quick.
Wow.
And then she immediately, in a short time, she needed care on a regular basis. And her family is known for loving people and caring for people who need it. So they were definitely ready,
Yeah.
But just to be able to share with them and to share with others. I know Allison has a coworker who's going through it, and they talk about it from time to time. And just to be there for other people. So, the reasons are, that God takes you through it are endless, and you don't always know. You may never know, or if somebody may be watching you, that they're not talking to you, but they're like, wow, I have a neighbor whose cousin went to church with mom, and I didn't know that until after mom passed. And my neighbor came to me because my mom wasn't there. It was COVID. We weren't in the house. And we had a food truck come to the neighborhood, and I saw them. They're like, sorry to hear about your mom. I was like, oh, thank you. And then we start talking about how they knew.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
you know, but everything happens for a reason. Whatever that is, whatever God's purpose is for it. We know He does have one. So,
Yeah.
That's true. And a lot of times dealing with death, you're like, God, well, what is your purpose? And a lot of people don't cope well with death, when they lose a loved one. And so it's different for everybody. But I am glad in your case, like you said, you felt a sense of relief, knowing that she's in a better place and knowing that, just the weight of everything that she went through and that you all went through with her, it's now gone, you know.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, do any of your children remind you the most of your mom?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, as far as knowing all of my mom's grandchildren, I think they all have a little bit of her. I mean, there are some pictures that we look at and we're like, younger pictures of my mom, and we're like, wow, So I don't think any of my kids in particular have a feature or anything was like, oh, that's mom. But I think someone looking from the outside, like I can see it more in their cousins than I can in them, and it's probably because I'm just too close to see it. But mom, had a way. I think all her grandchildren loved her so much and so dearly. And you know, and my children included, that they carry that with them, you know. So, yeah, I think in time I'll start seeing more things.
Right.
But I mean, I learned a lot about Mom in the last, you know, even through other people, and things that I knew but I never articulated, and I hear someone say it, I'm like, yeah, that is how Mom is, you know. But like Mom would never talk bad about anyone, and I knew that as her child, but I didn't think about it as other people. But, you know, sometimes people try to get you to say things, you know, so-and-so, you know, they get on my nerves. What you think? I mean, not like that, but, you know, you know,
I know what you mean.
But she'll always try to, I mean, she'll always take maybe say nothing, or maybe, you know, accentuate the positive. Well, you know, one of her famous sayings was, "This too shall pass." So whatever you're going through, it's going to end at some point. Yeah, you know, it may not end for a long time, or it may end when you die, but it's going to end. It's going to end. So I think that was her take on life, was that even dealing with people who, you know, I mean, there were, you know, like, you have to deal with people in your life. Well, most people do. And even like her coworkers, they were like, yeah, Pat never, you know, she never complained. She never, you know, the people I didn't know reached out to us, and they're like, yeah. Well, you know, people who had asked about her, and they spoke at her funeral, and when they things that they said, I was just like, wow. Mom. You know? And even people from church would reach out to me during that time, like folks your age, was like, that I hadn't talked to in lots of years, and they're just like, yeah, I had to talk to you because, you know, Miss Wiggins meant a lot for me. She got me my first job. I was like, what? She did? Or she, you know, she was responsible for this. So, you know, that just goes to say that, you know, Mom, you know, I grew up with Mom, and I still didn't know everything there was to know about her. And, you know, it just kind of blew my mind. And there was folks who, it just a lot happened that made me know that, you know, I knew that her life, she lived a good life, but it was just refreshing to hear from people. Just wanted to talk, or they said, yeah, this means a lot to me, and I'm sorry to see her go. So, yeah.
How old was your mom when she passed?
She was 79.
79, yeah. Okay.
She's born in... Yeah, 79. yeah. Because she's born in January, I get confused sometimes.
I got you.
But yeah,
I got you.
Okay. She had just turned 79.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And,
yeah. You know, I talked about her infectious smile earlier, right? And that was one of the things that I just remembered the most. She just seemed to always have a smile on her face. And even when I shared with my mom, you know, who wasn't a member of Edgewood, but she would pop in and out every now and then. That's one of the things that she said, you know, when I told her, I said, Mom, you know, I attended Pat Wiggins' funeral. I was like, you remember Pat Wiggins, right? She said, yeah, she used to play the piano, and she was always smiling. So, you know, that was something that my mom took away from her as well. And so when I was online, or the Zoom, because the funeral was, you know, a lot of us were on Zoom. And it seemed to kind of be that commonality when people did share about her, you know, just how nice she was and how kind she was and her smile. And I'm like, I remember that as well. So that's awesome. And, you know, I'm glad that people had those wonderful things to say about her. And like you said, I'm sure that meant a lot to you when you heard people say things that you didn't know that she had done for people. Yeah. Well, I do thank you, Glenn, for sharing a bit of your story with us. And before we do close, I do want you to share anything for anybody that's in your shoes, any other encouragement or advice that you would have for them.
They call us the sandwich generation because we're in the middle of caring for our kids and our parents. But I don't know where the term came from, but I think it's been going on for centuries. So but it seems a little more impactful now and more regular. But I mean, every situation is different. I mean, if we weren't able to move, I don't know what we would have done. If we weren't able to, if Mom hadn't had the insurance policy that she did, things might have been a lot different. So I know that's reality for a lot of people, but again, it just goes back to your faith in God, knowing that He's going to bring you through it. There are going to be tough times. There's going to be challenges. You just got to keep pushing day by day. I didn't know how we were going to make it. Even the insurance policies, they run out. And I knew Mom's insurance policy was probably going to last another 12 months. And I was looking at ways to handle it. So you just got to, get ahead of it as best you can. But at the end of the day, it's your loved ones. You got to take care of your kids. You got to take care of your parents because they took care of you. I mean, every situation is different. I'll just keep saying that. But just hang in there. I can talk to you. And especially if any of my friends are going through it, I would definitely be willing to share because I think it helps.
Yeah,
so,
it does.
But that's really all I got.
Okay. And I thought about a Bible verse that says, when you honor your mother and father, your days will be added, right? Yeah. So, I encourage you and Allison with that, with how you cared for your mom.
Yeah.
God's going to extend your days because of how you honored her.
Awesome.
So thank you again, Glenn, for being on. It's actually still weird not calling you Mr. Glenn because that's how I called you. That's what I called you growing up.
Okay.
So I removed the Mr. now.
That's good. Let's keep it there, though. Moving. I figured once you got married, we were clear.
Right.
About that.
I know, right? What's funny, before I got married, I saw Allison. Ooh, this was like maybe 2007 or 8. And I called her Miss Allison. And she said, no, you're an adult now. I think I was in college. She said, you're an adult now. I'm not Miss Allison anymore. I'm Allison. And that was just so weird to me because I'm thinking, I mean, I know I'm an adult, but I don't see you as just Allison, so it's just weird just taking that off even today.
I remember taking my son to college his first year and somehow we were having lunch with him. He had 3 roommates. It might have been other parents too. And I just happened to be sitting closer to the students. And one of his roommates looks at me and says, well, what do we call you? I was floored because I was like, I don't know. Do you call me Glenn because you're 18?
Right.
Do you call me Mr.? I said, what's comfortable for you?
So
I kind of went with it with that. But that transition is
interesting,
yes,
right?
Interesting.
It's
interesting.
And at least he was actually polite enough to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Some kids are just, they don't care.
Right.
Or young adults, rather.
Right. Yeah. It's transition. So, I mean, it's the same, but like in church, it's usually easier because like Reverend Jones was always Reverend Jones.
Yeah, right.
So it was nothing else I was going to call him. But we weren't, reverends or
yeah.
So we kind of prefer, just first name basis at some point. But we wouldn't go that way. But yeah, even with most of my. I mean, I guess I'm a peer of your mom and dad. I think I'm a little younger than them, but
probably, yeah.
Still, it's still kind of that same.
Yeah.
Someone used to say, "Put a handle on it." Got to be an uncle or auntie or something else in front of that. But we're past that.
We're past it now.
But if you feel more comfortable, I'll go with it. But Glen is cool.
Glen is cool. Okay. Well, thank you again, Glen, so much for just for being on and sharing a bit of your story. I know it's going to encourage others out there who
I sure hope so.
Who can relate. So. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right.
Well,
thank you everyone for tuning in today. I hope that you were blessed, and I want you to be sure to share this with someone else that they may be blessed as well. And like the episode, as well as leave a comment letting us know something that stood out today. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel Breakthrough Conversations. In the meantime, have a wonderful day and be blessed.